What have you learned in the last couple of months about how this is affecting the campuses that you're responsible for?
Well, obviously the economy has challenged all of our campuses and all of our presidents. We are trying to do a lot more with, candidly, a lot less. Our state support for student has dropped from over $9,000 per student down to a little over $6,000 per student.
And something we've heard is that students should be preparing for bigger classrooms, bigger classes. Do you have any thoughts on what that means going forward for the quality of higher education?
Well, the future of higher education, public higher education, is in jeopardy. We are fighting to maintain quality, which often is associated with class size and quality of professors, and we're trying to balance that with affordability and accessibility. My great fear is that public higher education becomes second-class education, and we simply cannot allow that to happen.
Obviously, a key part of that is the people who are teaching students. We know job cuts are a reality today. Pay cuts are a reality too. What about the concerns that staff have with pay cuts? Do you have a concern with losing some of your staff, key staff, say, to other states?
Oh, I absolutely have a concern about losing key staff to other states. I am or have been on the boards of major private universities, and they see this as a time of opportunity to get the best and brightest that we have out of the public sector and move them into private institutions, and that concerns me dreadfully.
When we talk about the economy, everyone points to a different indicator to say, I'm feeling better. They might look at what's happening in the jobs market. They might look at what's happening in the housing market. What about from where you sit? What would make you comfortable on the economic front that would tell you student educations are going to be okay?
Well, what would make me more comfortable, obviously, is increases in state tax revenues, sales tax and income tax revenues, such that the university system can be funded in a way that will not necessitate our raising tuition, so that education can remain both high quality and affordable to our students.
Chancellor, let's broaden things out to energy. It's an industry you know very well. We are in the midst of a national crisis in the Gulf. Can we recover from that crisis?
Well, I think we can recover. The world is dependent upon oil. The challenge is, where are the resources? There are abundant resources, particularly oil and other energy resources, but a lot of the oil resources are in areas and in regimes that are not necessarily friendly to us, which is why we are tending to push the envelope in such things as deep water drilling in areas that are friendly to us.
Well, let's pick up on that point, because obviously there's been plenty of debate. You know about the latest news on the drilling ban. What is your current position on deep water drilling?
Well, it is clear that we have learned that deep water drilling has risk, clearly, and those risks have to be managed effectively in order to maintain deep water drilling programs. But again, the need for those resources is a function of the demand for those resources. Clearly, we should do more in alternative energy, perhaps, than we are doing. But if you look at any reasonable projection, alternative energy is not going to fill a large part of our energy needs anytime soon. And so we are going to be dependent upon fossil fuel, coal and oil and other traditional forms of energy for, candidly, the foreseeable future.
So you're supportive of a continuation of deep water drilling?
I am supportive of deep water drilling to the extent that the risks become more identified and certainly manageable.
Have you had a chance to visit the Gulf since the crisis?
I have not had a chance to visit the Gulf.
Now, I realize there are limits on what you can say about BP specifically. I did want to go back to something that you said, or at least through the New York Times in 2005, was told to a New York Times reporter. Enron made me very angry. We are all paying a tremendous price for the screw-up. These are powerful positions we executives hold. I have $8 billion at my disposal. we don't have that many checks and balances on us, you can lose perspective. I can't read that and not think that you wouldn't want to, at the very least, clarify what was going on in the BP boardroom and whether more could have been done from a safety perspective.
Well, again, I can't comment on this incident. I have no more detail on it than you have. I know from my experience on the board that it was a company deeply committed to safety and had had a number of accidents in the past, such as in Texas City, and it was paying attention to the details and to the causes of those accidents and was bringing in outside experts to help in that process. So it's certainly not something that was neglected in the boardroom at BP.
If that's the case, do you feel as though BP has been treated unfairly?
Well, it's not for me to say whether BP has been treated fairly or unfairly. Clearly, that the court of public opinion is still open.
What about the fact that you've got a very busy day job and this is going on? Have you found this whole situation to be a distraction to you in your role as chancellor?
Oh, this is absolutely not a distraction to me in my role as chancellor. I have stepped down from the BP board. I did before the accident, so I really have no involvement in this other than being named in some lawsuits, which I expect at some time in the distant future will be settled without my involvement.
And again, I know there are limits on what you can say, but what was your reaction to being named in some of those suits? I mean, did that surprise you?
Oh, I'm certainly not surprised that I'm named in suits. If you've been in corporate America long enough, you're going to be named in suits. This is certainly not the first time I have been named in major lawsuits.
Right now, all of the world's attention, of course, is on stopping the spill. After we get to that stage, what is the number one question for the energy industry?
Well, oil, of course, is but one part of the energy industry. I would quite frankly think we should turn our attention back to climate issues. Is there going to be a carbon tax? Is there going to be cap and trade? I think we need to resolve those types of issues. I don't think we can become distracted by this accident. It will be resolved. It will be solved. But those are longer term air quality and climate issues that really need to be addressed. And right now, they are not being addressed with the focus that they had been prior to this accident.
You did say earlier that you do support continued deepwater drilling done safely. How is that done? How is that accomplished? How do you satisfy the public's concern about safety with deepwater drilling?
I'm certainly not an expert on deepwater drilling. I think you will come out of this with a set of standards that have been established by experts, certainly people far more expert than I, and if those standards are met and if those standards are acceptable to society, then the program should continue.
I do want to get off the topic of BP, but just based on something you just said, as a board member, how much are you told about what is going on with these types of operations? I mean, it doesn't have to just necessarily be BP on safety, but on any of the boards that you sit on. I mean, how much information are you getting about what exactly is going on?
Well, the purpose of boards, of course, is not to operate companies. The purpose of boards is to set policies under which the management would manage and operate the company. What the board expects is that the risk be laid out and given some assurances that there are appropriate risk management programs in place. Now, risks come from a lot of different areas, from environmental factors, from decisions you make about strategic direction, from daily operations, and on and on. And so to suggest that a board would ever know every risk is probably a bit far-fetched, but again, I think corporations in general should have, all entities, all organizations should have enterprise risk management programs in place, and boards should be given assurance that the major risks have been identified and that there are adequate safeguards and programs in place to manage those risks.
Chancellor, you're one of the most respected executives in Atlanta, if not in the country, and you said earlier that this hasn't been a distraction from your role as chancellor, but what about sitting on corporate boards? Have you thought about whether there's value for you in your role to be on other boards with this kind of stuff going on?
Well, I think there is value, and obviously there are risks as well. One of the things you do learn on boards and from colleagues on boards is how to manage better. This has always been, to me, a benefit of being on boards, to associate with some of the best managers in the United States, and I think that has helped me to be a better manager as well.
So, for example, you'll continue to sit on the board of General Motors as you do now. There's no change to that. I have no plans to step down from the board of General Motors or from Union Pacific. Just before wrapping up, what about the economy in the Gulf? I mean, you're closely monitoring the economy in the state of Georgia and how it pertains to the school system. Obviously, jobs from the energy industry are important to the U.S. economy. Have you given any thought to how the economy is affected by all this and the job story in this country is affected by all this?
No, I really don't have any comment on the job situation in the Gulf or its impact on the economy. I've been accused of a lot of things, but being an economist is not one of them.
Okay. Do you think BP will survive?
I think BP will survive. It is a strong, robust company. It will do what is necessary. It has been through many crises through its long history, and it has always emerged a stronger and better company, and I assume it will do so this time as well.
And I hate to put you on the spot, but what about Tony Hayward? Do you think he can stay in his position as CEO?
I have not been privy to any conversations about Tony since I left the board, so I don't really know. I haven't spoken with any board members, in fact, so I don't know the tone or tenor of the conversation. So my speculation would be no better than yours at this point about his future.
Any reason for not having the continued communication with them, or?
Well, I'm an ex-board member. I'm no longer associated. When you're gone, you're gone. There's no old board members club or information flow that goes to old board members. So, I have not gotten any information about this accident that, I watch TV and just as many others do to learn about it. So I have no insights to share.